Good afternoon, fourth grade. We basically reviewed what we learned on Monday about the Indian Removal Act, added in a little bit more information, and then we moved on to the Trail of Tears. Now, please don't forget to have your student go on over to brainpop.com and log in over there. You will have to make an account. You can use your student email from RenWeb if you've ever set that up. I think it's just the kid's name, period, well, their first name, period, last name at thomassumter.org. If you haven't done that, you can do that through RenWeb if you're interested. If not, just, make your own account. It is a free resource right now, and that's not the usual. Anytime they do have something free on there, I try to use it in class if it goes along with anything that we're learning. It is just super awesome. It goes over tons of different subjects, got English and language arts and science and social studies. So guys, if you have a chance, go look through the site, let your kids search around. We've used it in class quite a bit over the years, especially those that have been with me for 3+ years. Like Brain Pop Junior is where we started, and now we've kind of progressed into Brain Pop. So I hope y'all enjoy it and you're able to get on over there. If you have trouble logging in or anything, just shoot me a message on Dojo or an email, and I will try my best to help you out. So anyways, reviewing what we have already learned, by 1830, most of the Native American tribes, especially in the Northeast, had been sent away or destroyed or broken up. But there were still hundreds of thousands of Native Americans that were living in Indian Territory down south. We're talking about Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, amongst other states. The poor whites down south were putting quite a bit of pressure on the federal government. They wanted to get their hands on this land, and so they elected their leader in 1828, and that leader was the Democrat Andrew Jackson. Now, Andrew Jackson, after being voted into office, makes it his mission to free up this land. And in 1830, he signed an act into order, and that act is known as the Indian Removal Act of 1830. And fun fact, it just barely passed the House, only by one vote. Now, there were quite a few people against this, forcibly removing people from their homes, especially when they had been there for years and years and years. We just didn't feel it was the right thing to do. All right, and I brought up Davy Crockett because that's the name that a lot of students already know. He's kind of famous, especially in the younger grades. I think they read a story about Davy Crockett in first grade, maybe. Anyway, he was a congressman from Tennessee who actually voted against the Indian Removal Act. So as soon as this act is passed, all 5 of the civilized tribes, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, Seminole, Creek, and Cherokee, are rounded up, sometimes at gunpoint, and sent 800+ miles to new reservations in Oklahoma. And we remembered a lot of the Cherokee felt that their best avenue was not to fight with guns or bows and arrows, but to go to the Supreme Court. We read about this on Monday, where John Marshall actually sides with the Cherokee and says you can't forcibly remove these people. They have a right to their lands, just like everybody else. And they actually won their case, but without the support of Andrew Jackson, they couldn't place it into effect where they got to keep their land. All right, so lots of treaties began being signed, and tribes were being forced off of their land. Some went peacefully and some did not. The Seminoles fought till the very end, and thousands of them ended up in Florida swamps, living their lives in hiding. But the majority of these Native Americans were put on the Trail of Tears, and a fourth of all Native Americans who traveled the Trail of Tears died either from disease, starvation, warfare, or being attacked by white settlers along the way. I shared a sad story. One of the tribes crossing the Ohio River in southern Illinois, the ferry operators there were charging Native Americans $1 per person. Now, we talked about $1 right now. That's not that much, but back then it was quite a bit of money. So they were charging $1 per person, Native Americans, but only 12 cents for whites. Now, there were hundreds of those Native Americans that froze on the side of that river waiting because they just couldn't afford to ride the ferry across. Anyway, so by 1838, the Southeast was mostly wiped clean of Native Americans, and their land was gobbled up by the white settlers. They actually had lotteries where they were just giving this land away to poor whites who wanted it. Like I said, Native Americans are pushed off to new land or reservations, which ended up being some of the worst land in the country at the time. It was dry and deserty, and it was really hard to grow crops. But even after being moved there, they will again be pushed off of their land. And that comes after the discovery of gold and oil, which we will learn about, but that's not this lesson. So we moved on from there. We read about the Trail of Tears here, and I'll read it for you guys. I have it pulled up. In 1838, our next president, President Martin Van Buren, ordered the United States soldiers to force the Cherokee to leave their land. The 800-mile journey to Indian Territory was so terrible that it became known as the Trail of Tears. A soldier named John Burnett never forgot what he saw on the Trail of Tears. Burnett said, "I saw the helpless Cherokees arrested and dragged from their homes. I saw them loaded like cattle or sheep into 645 wagons and started toward the west." By 1839, the Trail of Tears had ended, and of the 15,000 Cherokee who began the journey, as many as one-fourth did not survive that trip. Many died from disease and bad weather, amongst other things that we just discussed a minute ago. All right, so here are our questions. It goes along with that paper from Monday and then also today. So number 1 was compare the views of John Marshall and Andrew Jackson on the rights of the Cherokee. And we said, John Marshall said Cherokee could not and should not be forced to leave their land. However, President Jackson felt that they could and should be forced to leave. Number 2, why do you think the government wanted to force the Cherokee and other groups out of their homes? We said because settlers wanted to make their homes where these groups lived. Number 3, how did the Cherokee react when the state of Georgia tried to take control of their land? Well, we said they brought their case to the Supreme Court, and although their case did win, it was not supported by President Jackson, right? So they did not get to stay on their land. They, in fact, had to go on the Trail of Tears. All right, number 4, what 5 major American Indian groups did the land in the South let me try it again. What 5 major American Indian groups did the land in the Southeast belong to? And that would be the Cherokee, the Creek, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, and the Seminole. And then finally, number 5, compare the way the Cherokee people lived before the Trail of Tears with their experiences during the journey. Before the Trail of Tears, they lived just like settlers. They lived off their land, crops, planting, they had cattle, but during, they lived like prisoners. They had no homes, and they were only allowed to bring a few belongings with them. So that's basically what we learned today, guys, what we reviewed and went over. Don't forget, we have our science test tomorrow on ecosystems. Make sure that we're studying for that, and we bring our notebooks with us to class along with our test, and it should be blank. Again, if there's any questions or concerns, please feel free to message me, and I will see everybody tomorrow at noon. Bye.